Welcome to more World of Warplanes content from the Noble Queue, and in this video we're going to take a look at the Grumman F5F Skyrocket, a premium Tier 5 American heavy, which is currently available in the premium shop, and help you decide whether you might like to buy this aircraft or not. Here's the F5F Skyrocket in my hangar. I've removed the UIs just so we can have a look at well, it's a rather strange looking aircraft in my opinion. Looks like a pencil's been rammed onto a surfboard. And this is the special livery that comes with the aircraft. And there is a special emblem which has an interesting feature which I'll explain towards the end of the video. Anyway, my Skyrocket is specialised, which means I have all of the equipment and consumable slots available. Whilst I'm showing you it, I've got the XF90 pilot in there, so I'm using it as a crew trainer, and perhaps one of the real benefits of this aircraft is that it is a good crew trainer. You'll find out why later, but for the moment I've got aerodynamics expert, bearing in mind that this is intended for the XF90 and not the F5 Skyrocket itself, engine guru, so we're trying to increase the speed, and I've also got resilience, and that's because I find the XF90 a bit of a handful when it's damaged, and when it's severely damaged I like to have the resilience skill kick in. The next skill that I'll be aiming for is actually going to be aerobatics expert, and that's because I want to give the XF90 a little bit more time on target. However, it will also work very well on this aircraft as well. As far as equipment's concerned, you've got 4 slots. Can't do anything with the airframe, unfortunately. I would definitely put in a lightweight airframe there if I could, but I can't. So the gun sight, lightweight power unit to increase the mobility, and that's probably the wrong piece of equipment. I suggest I probably want to put in an uprated engine. I won't do that now, but almost certainly later on I will remove the boost mixture injection system and put in an uprated engine. Forward firing weapon, I have put an ultimate gas operated action on it, and that's a bit of an odd one as well. I might reconsider that too. Burst length, it would be a much better idea to increase on this aircraft, and I'll explain why later on. As for consumables, fire extinguisher, because there's no tail gunner on this aircraft, and as usual I usually only put a medical kit on when I have 2 crew members and I lose one. Pneumatic control assist to improve manoeuvrability. That would certainly come in handy if you're fighting against, say, the Ki-45 Toryu. Engine cooling, very important for an extra 10 seconds of boost, because one of this aircraft's principal escape mechanisms is to boost away from enemy aircraft. Engine restart, and universal ammunition. So that's how it looks, and that's how I kit it out. Let's go and look at the statistics for this aircraft. Here are the figures for the F5F Skyrocket laid out in workbook form so I can compare them to all the other Tier 5 heavies. The Skyrocket is in columns C and D, the other heavies occupy 2 columns each off to the right, as you can see. There are 2 other premiums, the ME210 and the SE100 here. Down the left we can see all of the main attributes: gun armament, defensive armament, ordnance and so on. The aircraft was stripped back to stock configuration. Ordnance where it was available was mounted. No equipment was put in the aircraft. The pilot was untrained and the modules were all top. This gives you the best raw comparison, but bear in mind, with equipment and pilot you can improve the characteristics of the aircraft considerably, and as you saw in the hangar, my figures are better in many cases than what you can see here. Green, the highlighted figure, green is best in class, light blue is second best in class, and light purple third best in class. We'll talk about armament at the end, or later anyway. We'll go straight on to ordnance, but what I will say, perhaps this is spoilers to a degree, the F5F Skyrocket isn't your typical heavy, and therefore some people may consider trying to fly it as a pseudo multi-role. Unfortunately, these figures here for these bombs show that that isn't necessarily a good option. These are very weak bombs, 2 of them won't reliably destroy a gun emplacement. Getting 4 of them on a gun emplacement is quite tricky. You have to be very quick with your spacebar or whatever key you've assigned to bombing, and I find it's more trouble than it's worth. This is one heavy fighter where I tend to remove the ordnance, whereas, as you know from my previous videos, I tend to keep the ordnance on heavy fighters, even where others will take it off in order to try and improve speed. I just don't think these bombs are worth the trouble. There is a compensation. They reload quite quickly, but for my part, I'd need that figure not to be 60 seconds but 30 before I'd consider it worth keeping the bombs on. So no bombs on this one for me. Survivability, unfortunately, is not very good either. It's more like a light fighter. The only aircraft that's more fragile, unsurprisingly, is the Ki-45 Torju. The hit points, it's actually coming up there as 3rd best in class, but 300 doesn't go a long way. You want to avoid getting hit in this, and fortunately you can do that. If we look at airspeed, this is where the F5F Skyrocket begins to score in some ways. It's 2nd best in class on its overall rating, and it's got the 2nd best in class cruise rating, but here's a clue: the boost. Best in class by some distance. Even the Lightning lags behind it at 385 miles an hour, and this will provide you with an escape mechanism or an attack approach. If you want to get away from unwanted attention, use your boost, and therefore I advise you strongly to control your boost carefully during a game. Don't be too liberal with it, because you will find yourself without it just when you need it. When an enemy aircraft is threatening you and need to get away, to be caught without boost would be bad, and consequently you also want to mount engine cooling as soon as you can. The boost duration is actually worst in class, despite it being highlighted as 2nd best in class there, so you definitely will need that engine cooling added for 35 seconds of boost with luck, in order to allow you to escape from attacking aircraft. It also provides you with an attack approach, and if you're thinking about high energy fighting as opposed to boom and zoom, you want to come in, hit your opponent, turn with them a little to get more time on kill, and then boost away. Dive speed, pretty good, but I wouldn't recommend dive speed necessarily as a mechanism for getting away from other aircraft. I'll talk about that again in a moment or two when we come on to altitude performance. Manoeuvrability. Well, apart from, unsurprisingly, the Ki-45, this is the 2nd most manoeuvrable heavy that's shown here, and that allows you to turn with aircraft if you choose them carefully and get more time on kill, and that's important, as you'll discover when we talk about ordnance. Overall rating 43, 2nd best in class on the turn rate, equal best in class on roll rate, 3rd best in class on the minimum and maximum optimum speeds, and a fairly healthy range in which those characteristics aren't degraded. Stall speed, pretty low. So this is a fairly forgiving aircraft in terms of manoeuvrability, and I suggest that what you want to do is try to use your manoeuvrability against other heavies except the Japanese, where you will want to engage it and then boost away, and certainly you'll want to use this aircraft to harass enemy bombers and ground attackers as well. But of course, as a newer player, you need to think hard about when you go down low, even in this aircraft. Altitude performance, and we'll just scroll up so my head's not in the way. And there we go. 44, 3rd best in maximum optimum altitude, which isn't particularly great, but it is useful, and you will want to try and stay at altitude, especially if you do as I do and take the ordnance off, so you've got no need to attack ground targets. The ceiling is pretty much average for the class. But here's the key figure, the climb rate. Best in class by some distance. Even the Lightning doesn't climb as fast, and instead of diving away from aircraft, if you combine this with your boost, your escape mechanism is to climb away from it. Gun armament, and here's the reason why this is not a heavy fighter in my opinion. The cumulative DPS is by some distance the worst in class, even worse than the Beaufighter 5, and the Beaufighter 5 has a very good turret to compensate, which will fire forwards. There is a compensating factor for the F5F. What you can't see, what isn't shown in the game, is what I would call burst damage, which is cumulative damage per second times the length that you can fire for, and there's the clue as to why in the hangar I mentioned that I thought I would change the equipment to the equipment that allows you to increase the burst length, because even if you can only peck away at aircraft every second, if you can get 8, 9, 10 seconds worth of fire at them, you will still do quite a lot of damage. However, this is by no means a boom and zoomer. It is a high energy fighter, and that's how you need to think about it. It has no defensive armament, so your escape mechanism, as I say, generally will be to boost upwards and away from aircraft that are engaging you. There are two other Tier 5 premium heavies, as I mentioned at the start of this section, which are the ME210 and the SE100. If you're specifically looking for a Tier 5 premium heavy fighter, these will give you a heavy fighter experience, whereas this one will not. Okay, I think that's enough about statistics. Let's go and look at the F5F in battle. And this battle map is Scorching Sands. It's the invasion variant with 3 garrisons strung in a line, 1 in the centre and 2 peripheral air bases. And strategically that makes the air bases the most important sectors on this map. You get the 3 resources every 5 seconds, as you know by now, and there are 3 special characteristics. You can select it as a spawn point, which is definitely helpful in this map. You can select a different aircraft of the same tier if you're destroyed, or you can get full repairs for your aircraft, and you'll see me use that once in the battle. The central garrison is tactically important because it allows easy access to all of the other sectors. If we look at the order of battle, we can see I'm top tier in my F5F Skyrocket. We have a Junkers 88A bomber, we have a Spitfire 1, watch out for him, good score at the end of the game. And we have 3 tier 4 aircraft, a Bristol 146, a Blenheim F and an I-17. The enemy lack one of the tier 5s. They do have a BF110E, very dangerous aircraft, an A6M3 experimental, which is unusual. It's a premium Japanese aircraft and it's got nasty cannons, hits very hard. An I-17 at tier 4, a Dornier Do 17 bomber, a Bristol 146 which is specialised, and an HE112. An interesting matchup, and I'm not really sure that you can tell much from this particular order of battle as to who's got the advantage. So here we are at the start of the battle. I've taken the ordnance off the Skyrocket. I don't think it's good enough to justify trying to push this aircraft into the multi-role function. So I'm going to largely try and stay high, harass bombers, heavies and anything else at altitude that I can. And an unusual pattern being flown by the air defence heavies right at the start of the battle. Threw me a little. By the time I turn on him, he's already been well and truly dealt with by the rest of my team. And before I can do anything else at this sector, my team captures him. Not unusual. You often don't do particularly well on the first garrison. If your team's competent, they'll take it very quickly and everybody shares a low amount of hit points. So my favourite move here is to fly to the nearest airfield, which on this particular map is the one on the right. I have to be careful there, I get my left and right confused these days, must be my age. Or if you prefer, in the west. And this is of course a repair base, and that's why I think it's the first sector to go after once you've got your local garrison. And you can see the manoeuvrability of the aircraft being put to good use here. The slothful bots start falling to my guns, even though they are very weak guns. At tier 5 they're serviceable. You're not going to like it much at tier 6, I suspect. And we have our airfield. And so now I head for the tactically important centre, which we already have, but I've seen the enemy tier 4 bomber, and as one of my prime purposes is to harass the bombers, that's what I'm going to do. And down he goes. Now looking for targets of opportunity. There's nothing immediately near. I wonder about going down low over this space to defend it, and eventually decide that I'm going to clear out the bomber above our garrison in case the air defence heavies don't take it out. And that was possibly the wrong decision. but nevertheless I get to kill the bomber. Now the central garrison is under serious threat, so that's the obvious place to go next. Again, looking for anything high or anything isolated down below me. And I see a Bristol who's chasing 3 aircraft, and I figure he might not react to me shooting me immediately, and in fact he doesn't react at all, so he becomes victim to my guns. I go into a climb and turn to find a target of opportunity, which is the HE-112. Turn and go into a climb. I spot a bomber. I decide not to go for it immediately, and then decide it's probably too late, we're going to lose the sector anyway, and I do go for the bomber. And at least I stop him from getting any damage done elsewhere. So now we're 3 sectors to 2 down. I don't tend to like attacking the local garrison of the enemy on this map, for the simple reason it becomes difficult to hold. If you're well and truly dominant, yes, but if it's a tight game, it's probably the last sector I think that's worth attacking. Put some bullets into the A6M3, and I climb away from him, and I don't bother returning for him. I decide that I'm going to try and take the airfield, and the first target that presents itself is a bomber. So we have that. And then the other bomber, the human one, comes into view, but this one's managed to get out of the sector. Nevertheless, I don't want him doing work anywhere else, so I will shoot him down as well. And in that time, no further progress has been made on the airfield, unfortunately. I work over one of the air defence heavies. Turn to see if I can catch something unawares. See a fighter coming straight at me, so I decide to fly away. Put distance between myself and it, and whilst I'm at it, take out the XP-44 as well. And some poor shooting means I take longer to do this than I thought I was going to. I'm very nearly at the garrison before I turn back towards the airfield, which we still haven't taken. I see the A6M3 on very low health. That's well worth taking out, so I do. Think about the ground attacker. I decide to ignore it because I want to get this airfield finally under control. Don't do quite enough to the air defence light fighter. I climb to get away using the excellent climb rate of this plane. Those big engines certainly make it fly upwards very impressively. Still trying to find a target I can take out to flip this base, and finally I find it. I spot that there's an enemy behind me, so again I climb, although I haven't got any boost to use, and then I choose to confront, and it turns out to be the A6M3, and I'm hoping I can take him out, and in fact he allows me to ram him, which was silly. I can get repairs, he's now got to spawn back at his original point. He'd have done far better to evade me, and he probably would have got me because I was actually out of boost. Now I pick up full repairs. It's as if the ram never happened. However, we are still 3 sectors to 2 down. This is a very tight game. I begin to gain altitude. And as the score line is up, I decide it's time to remove the bombers permanently from the game. I engage my engine cooling, and I chase down what turns out to be the human bomber. And unfortunately for him, I consider him to be a prime target at this stage of the game, so I'm not going to let him go. And that's him removed. That's the Winged Legend notification going through. If find, for the first time in the game, the BF-110E. Also another good aircraft to remove from the game. Much more manoeuvrable. He's very much concentrating on the air defence heavy, and I remove him from the game too. And at this point I'm feeling fairly relaxed. I don't see us losing another sector. I think we've got this game in the bag. That didn't turn out to be the case. I ignored the bomber because I want to try and take out the Bristol 146. He blows up, or rather something else shoots him down. I get the assistance for it, and now I chase the bomber down. And much to my surprise, the enemy have taken a garrison. Now I did mention that the local garrison is difficult to defend, and so it proved. That was the ace notification going through, showing that I'd taken 20 aircraft, and now I have a difficult decision, and I think I probably made the wrong one here. Instead of heading for the local garrison to confront the remaining enemy aircraft, and there were only 3 of them left, I decided to go and try and take the airfield. And I've probably got the Spitfire to thank for removing the last 3 enemy aircraft, or at least some of them, because I don't do a very good job of taking this airfield. I failed to destroy the first aircraft. I very nearly let myself get rammed by another one, which means I have to break away. I climb and return. And this is all taking too long, and I find I'm nearly confronted by a heavy, which again prevents me from doing any serious damage. I turn on him. And it's a moot point as to whether I would have killed 2 more aircraft to flip this base in time, given how long I've taken to do this. Especially as I failed to kill that one again. However, my luck is in. The last enemy aircraft has been destroyed, and it's a victory. There's a good haul of medals there, and 19,000 personal points, which is not too bad for this aircraft. Let's review the outcome of that battle, and as we can see it was a 5 chevron battle, or if you prefer a grade 1 heavy fighter, the best result possible. 169,620 credits, or silver if you prefer, gross, with 57,000 of that due to a premium account. If we take a look in the message box we can see there were no expenses because the aircraft wasn't shot down, no repair costs, and I used prepaid consumables. 3,876 XP with the bonus, 193 for experience similarly, and 2 tokens for first medals of the day, the Marseille and the Ace. Turning to the personal score tab, we can see of the class specific missions, 2 were complete and the 3rd was very nearly complete, thus making that a very easy 5 chevron battle. Personal points of 19,150, 3 sectors captured, 21 aerial targets destroyed, 1 more than was needed for the Ace, 5,519 personal damage to aerial targets, 34 critical hits, which is a little bit of a surprise, and 580 capture points, and that was divided 200 for defending and 300 for attacking, 380 for attacking. Turning to the team score panel, we can see that was enough for first place in the team. Good contribution from the Spitfire 1 there, and some reasonable contributions from some of the players on the enemy team. Now, let's take a look at the bundle that's currently on offer in the shop. And as we can see, I have it in front of us here, the Grumman F5F Skyrocket ready for battle. And that will set you back £22.88. If you're working in British currency, that's €26.75 or $32.94 US. And what do we get in the bundle? Well, we get the plane itself, that's good. We get a 100% trained crew with 5 free skill points. Well, if you're going to be buying it, you're probably going to be buying it as a crew trainer. Why do you need a crew member? Maybe of some use elsewhere. You can always use it on a different plane. The decoration set, and this is worth talking about. First off, the paint scheme. The paint scheme that you can see here gives you 5% extra combat experience, and of course when you've got the aircraft specialised you can then redirect that to crew experience, so you get an extra 5% there. The nose art, which in this case is on the engines, gives you an extra 2%, an extra 3% crew experience, and the emblem. Most emblems will give you 2% extra crew experience. This one gives you 20%, and I have done the maths, I've checked some battles, it is 20%, it's not a mistake. Or if it is a mistake, it's one in your favour because it works at giving you 20% extra crew experience. That's basically like flying this premium aircraft twice in the same battle. You get 20% for the premium aircraft, that's the standard bonus for a premium aircraft on crew experience, and you get it again from the emblem. Is that enough to make this worth having? Probably not, but it's a nice to have. You get the hangar slot, 2,000 gold, and 5 of these steel supply crates. Now I do have a video on the supply crates. The long and short of it is, I believe that Wargaming is using these to bump up the price of the bundle to what is effectively a tier 7 price. Let me show you what I mean. Here's the Meteor F1, and you can see that will set you back £22.32 for a tier 7 aircraft without any of these extras. Now if you want the steel crates, this isn't a good idea, but if you understand that the steel crates are not necessarily going to give you anything that you want, why would you pay £22 for a tier 5 aircraft? And that's especially so if you look at the tier 5 premium heavy that's always available in the shop, the SE100, and as you can see this will set you back £6.84 just for the aircraft itself, considerably less. And this aircraft, for instance, gives you a much truer heavy experience. It has very good armament both forwards and rear. It's not particularly manoeuvrable, certainly the Skyrocket will outmaneuver it, but the great advantage of this aircraft is it's in what's called the European tech tree, although it's not really a tech tree. But what that means is, for the sum of 100,000 credits, you can assign this aircraft to any of the major nations that you like. So you could make it British, you could make it German, you could make it American, and so on, and you can then use it as a crew trainer on those nations. So it has a considerable advantage over the Grumman F5 Skyrocket, which you can only use to train American pilots. So all in all, what we have here is an aircraft that is not truly a heavy. It has appalling DPS, although that is compensated to a reasonable degree by a very good burst length, which you should do everything to maximise. It has ordnance which I find is too weak to be of use, so I take it off, which is unusual for me. You may want to keep it on and try and use it a little bit in the multi-role function. I don't think you're going to succeed too well, but you never know, there will be the odd battle where it's useful. It has an extremely good climb rate, and if you manage your boost and you have the engine cooling consumable, that's your best route for getting away from enemies intent on destroying you. All that said, is this bundle worth having? Well, unless you really want to gamble with the steel supply crates and you need a little bit of gold, I have to say no. I think you'd be better off buying the SE100 for roughly a third of the price. And there you have it. That's my video review of the Grumman F5F Skyrocket. I hope you found that useful, and if you did, you'll come back and see my future content. But until then, this is the Noble Q signing out.